Very good evening to everyone. My name is Faith, Chairperson Salma Khayamed, Dean Hatim El Taib, distinguished delegates, advisors, and very welcome guests. It is the fourth year in a row that I have the extreme honor of welcoming an enthusiastic group of conference participants who have come from all over the continent and some from different parts of the world. Everyone believing in the idea that aggregating some of the continent's brightest young minds to design solutions to historical and sometimes contemporary African challenges is very worthwhile. Like many of those who came before you in years past, you've all taken off from the comforts of your institutions and your nations, and you have embraced the character of countries that are sometimes alien to you. Many of you have embraced the character of research, of investigation, of trying to understand Africa in a way that perhaps you have never engaged with it before. You have flown across time zones, and some of you have driven across traffic stops. You have researched a lot and you have prepared for this moment because you believe, like many others who came before you, that your ideas are valuable. You also believe that your investment is worthwhile. And you believe that you matter to Africa's future. You have believed, like my grandfather's generation believed, that there is a place in the world for people who once succumbed to the whip of colonial masters. And that belief spurred that generation to keep on fighting and to pass the torch to my father's generation, who were raised on the speeches of Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere and Haile Selassie, to know that if they work hard and they stand together, that no one could stop a united Africa. That idea has been born deep into my heart since childhood, and I see it reflecting in your eyes tonight. That belief that we could build on the sacrifices of generations before us, and we can refuse to be comfortable in the face of so much discomfort. And I believe that's why you came here tonight. And if you're anything like me, perhaps you might read the news constantly, and you might have seen some of the headlines from across Africa in the last week. In the last 7 days only, you might have seen the fact that the United Nations has declared that there is extreme hunger plaguing South Sudan and Somalia and northeast Nigeria. The proportions of this hunger have never been seen in the world since the end of World War II. You might have heard that Somalia's Prime Minister declared that more than 6 million people, that's half of the country's population, is facing extreme food shortage. You might have picked up the fact that there is a sickening extent, a sickening level of child labor in the cobalt mines of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where you have more than 40,000 children as young as the age of 7 slaving day and night in mines, exposing themselves to excruciating pain and long-term illnesses. Why? So that you and I can have phones with long life battery. You might have picked about the fact that the United Nations Human Rights Commission released a report last week about the ongoing ethnic cleansing in South Sudan. More than 1.5 million people have fled the country, and I can tell you that is Africa's largest migrant crisis right now. But of all this, the story that breaks my heart the most is the story of a young lady called Salome Karwa. Salome is a 28-year-old nursing assistant from Liberia. And when the Ebola virus broke out in 2014 and eventually killed 11,310 people, including her father, her mother, her brothers, her uncles, her aunts, her cousins, and one of her nieces, she survived. And she continued to work with Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, to treat elderly people and feverish babies. And she did that until she had her own son 4 weeks ago, on February 17. But the same failed healthcare system that Salome worked her short life to save is the same one which let her down. Within hours of giving birth, she began to convulse. And no one would touch her. No one would treat her because she was an Ebola survivor. And so for a couple of hours, she experienced violent seizures and she was foaming at the mouth. And no one came close to her until she died. And I thought about this as I wrote my speech. I thought, to have lost every single thing in the world to the Ebola virus, only to die due to the stigma of the virus, is extremely shameful. And I pray that her soul rests in peace. But Salome is not alone. She's not the only one. Millions of young girls and women are being let down by this exact same continent every single second that we live. Hundreds of thousands of cities across Africa are home to people who aspire and dream and expect a lot from their elected governments, and in some cases, unelected governments, desiring change. And I keep saying to myself, we have to fix this rot. Something has to give. We must not suffer from the illusion of temporal longevity, assuming that we have time. We don't have time. So, as you've come to this conference from all over the continent, some of you from different parts of the world, I want to ask you to walk with a sense of urgency. Our continent is hungry and desperate for change. We are desperate for the solutions which you will design in this conference this week. I'm asking you to take interest in the issues of agriculture, and education, and infrastructure, and energy, and healthcare, and security, and our electoral systems. As I speak to you, citizens, millions of citizens in the Democratic Republic of Congo are wondering when they will have the privilege of seeing ballot papers. Because the long-term president declared a few weeks ago, just close to the end of his tenure, that the country is too poor to afford elections. But surely they're rich enough to afford his presidential jets. So delegates, you don't have time. Africa cannot afford to wait for you to grow up and possibly become as cynical as some of the guys who raised you. That is a luxury that we can't afford. And so, as I have found out in my time and my journey through life, nothing changes over time. Things only change when committed citizens take deliberate action. That is when things change. And so whether you have come like Angie Pereira as a delegate from Sri Lanka by way of Malawi, or Samantha Moon-Yulka from Peru by way of Botswana, or if you're Anania Mandal from India by the way of Cote d'Ivoire, or Momina Tara from Pakistan by way of Kenya, or whether you're an advisor like Jansan Damdinsuren from Mongolia, or if you drove from down the road in Honeydew or Tembisa, I want you to know, I want every single one of you to know that over the course of these 5 days, your work is very important. And we are very, very glad that you came. And so I wish you all extremely productive sessions, and I wish you a lot of success. Thank you very much.